Welcome to How to Do Everything. My name is Tommy Dasilo. I am your host, and today on the show, ARIA Award-nominated singer-songwriter GORDI is going to teach me how to cook a turkey for 70 people on short notice. This show is on Patreon. If you want to support what we do here, you can get onto patreon.com/howtodoeverything. Get yourself some extra content as a little reward for chipping in. But today on the show, I am very, very excited to be joined by the excellent GORDI. She has a new album out called Like Plasticine on August the 8th. She is an ARIA Award-nominated artist. She has collaborated with Bon Iver. She sang backup for them on The Tonight Show. She's done all these amazing things. She has a background in medicine, which we talk about a little bit. I was rapt that she wanted to do the show. I had a great time chatting with her. And so here we go. This is GORDI on How to Do Everything. Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you for joining me in my home studio setup.
I love it.
This must feel very familiar to you, just being trapped in a warren of chords and...
It does. I really if you could see my home setup at the moment, it's and it's worse when you have a wheelie chair, because then it's all the cables are everywhere, and then I'm sort of trying to get up and it's impossible.
Yeah. I think I have a dog and I'll have him at the cafe and he's tied up under the cafe. He's got his little lead hooked on a chair, and then you look down and he's just got himself in this Cirque du Soleil configuration because he's seen a biscuit and couldn't get it, and it's brother, this is the dog's equivalent of podcasting. You get yourself, this is the dog home studio. You get yourself in a complete tangle. But hey, thank you for doing this. This is an exciting get for the podcast. I think this is the first time. This is a fairly new show. Mm-hmm. It's only been going since the start of the year, and this is the first time I think it's ever been considered as part of an official press junket. So,
hell yeah.
So this is exciting for me. This is a great get.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here.
And thank you for filling out the famous survey. You and I hadn't met before today. You are now at the top of the leaderboard in terms of willingness to participate in the survey, promptness in getting the survey back, and thorough and interesting answers to the responses. So
that's good. I mean, you'll discover about me. I'm an inherent people pleaser. So
okay, that's good to know. Maybe I should only be chasing people who are people pleasers.
That's a good strategy. Yeah.
I've been teasing on the show for a while. I got to get this. I've got to write up the official leaderboard of people with the survey. So far, genuinely, I think you are up the top. And right down the bottom is John Safran, who just refused point blank to do it.
Incredible.
And instead sent me his phone number and said, if there's anything you want to know, just call me. And I said, no, just what's there would be great. That's kind of what I want to know. So, if you can just get on the computer, that'd be awesome.
Well, usually what comes through, and I'm doing press because I'm promoting a record.
Yes.
And it is... often you're answering a lot of the same questions.
Right.
And I must admit, when I landed on a 15-hour flight yesterday, and I was like, all right, opening emails, getting through stuff, and I opened the survey and I was like, I'm going to need a coffee before I approach this.
Is that good or bad? You were ready to really go into autopilot and read a lot of where do you get your ideas?
Yeah. Initially
What's the
it was
first
bad.
instrument you picked up?
Initially it was bad. I was like, I don't have the mental capacity for this. And then once I'd had some caffeine, I was like, this actually rules.
Okay, that's good to know. Again, I need to put that in the preamble. Don't attempt
don't do this first thing in the morning.
Don't attempt this at the start of a flight. Don't attempt it without a coffee. But yeah, you had some great answers. I was really interested in, I guess, we will talk about the album as well. We'll kind of go in and out of all this kind of stuff. But one thing that really stuck out was that you talk about always having lived quite a chaotic life, something that you learnt how to do as a kid.
Yeah.
So from early childhood, you were doing different sports every night of the week?
Yeah, basically. I feel so I grew up on a farm outside a tiny town called Canoundra in rural New South Wales. 1,800 people live there. And I just feel like my entire life I've sort of had just this general response to me in whatever community I'm in, sort of people being what are you doing with your life? Why are you always in a million places at once? And when I was a kid, it was soccer, cricket, basketball, being in a local community play, singing in something. And I remember I still feel very sorry for my parents having to have ferried me around.
Drive you around to all different,
and we didn't live in town. So it was 7 days a week I had some kind of extracurricular. I was the busiest 11-year-old that you've ever met.
And was that kind of That town that you're in, is that a place where it is a bit of a slower pace? Like, did you really stick out as someone who was like going and committing yourself to so much stuff?
I guess. I mean, look, it's the hot air ballooning capital of Australia. I'll
Okay.
have everyone know.
Have you done hot air ballooning?
I've been up in one that was tethered to the ground, which...
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that going up in one if it's not?
I
If
don't
it's
think so.
like how high off the ground?
Like 100 meters.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a bit of a non-event. Canberra have actually tried to take the crown.
Oh, right.
Which, like, I feel like they've got enough going on. But
Is
anyway,
this going to be the new, like, every town reckons they've got the best vanilla slice? Is it
Exactly.
going to be every small country town is going to claim that they're the hot air ballooning capital of the world?
I mean, it's an interesting contest. I think that, like, the town, like it's a country town,
Yeah.
a small country town, but there's always kind of like a lot going on there. But yeah, I did feel like I was sort of just always trying to, I guess it's really a basis of FOMO. I just didn't want to miss out
Right.
on anything that was
Right.
going around.
And
Yeah.
when you're like now, you're obviously you've got this record coming out. You've got this like very busy touring schedule. Are you someone when you go on holidays? Are you ever able to relax, or are you someone who? Because I'm very much a holiday to me is. I'm still doing a lot. I love a city holiday. I love being away and just doing stuff and not having like work to do. I don't. Like 2 weeks just on a beach, I don't go so well with.
Oh no! I mean, look, if 2 weeks on a beach, the first 48 hours, I'm mental. Like I can't. I'm sort of, my brain's trying to switch gears, and I feel just crazy. But then once I break past that barrier, I can relax. Like I like once I have, and genuinely, if I feel like I've come to the end of some project or whatever, and I feel like I've got the space to relax, then I can rinse like a number of series in a row.
Yeah,
on
that's
Netflix,
it. You need to feel like there's been some big finish line.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm the same. I mean, I give myself maybe 24 hours. And even in that 24 hours, I'm like, you should be thinking about, there's always something.
Yeah.
There's always something to be doing.
I know.
I went to Vietnam a couple of years ago, and this will explain me being 13 minutes late to this appointment. I had just recently been diagnosed with
Interested
ADHD.
to see this through line. Yeah.
And I took my meds with me thinking it's a holiday, I won't need them, but I'll pack them just in case. And then I had one day where I woke up and I could not decide what form of relaxation to do. I was just doing laps of the resort and being like, this is crazy. I'm going to take a Dexy to just settle myself on this holiday. And it was amazing feeling it kick in and just my brain go, yeah, just sit on the beach.
Incredible. Wow.
Taking
I should
meth
try
to
that.
relax is just like the mind being too busy to really focus on what form of relaxation you want to do.
Fully.
So maybe that could be helpful. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I'll put that in the file.
But so you, a thing that probably like a lot of people know about you is that you've had this amazing music career, but you studied medicine, you were a doctor, you went full time with music, and then you went back to medicine during the pandemic. And was that like when you were like trying to launch a music career and study medicine at the same time? Like, I'm interested in, because I do think that is like the parent's dream of a kid going, I want to do something creative and in the arts. But don't worry, I'm also concurrently studying the most fail-safe fallback job that exists. Like, were you thinking, like, in what, like, how were you thinking of those two things, like running side by side when you were doing them at the same time? Was the dream to get the music happening, or were you just thinking that it would be more of a hobby while you were doing the study?
Yeah, I mean, it's the latter really.
Right.
Like, so I never thought music would be a career. Like, it was always my like absolute hobby and passion. And I've written songs since I was like 13 years old. But I never kind of saw it as a viable career option. And so all through school, I was thinking, well, like I did okay at school. So I was like, I'm probably going to try and go to university. And then I was thinking, I wanted to work in some kind of service industry. And so I don't know, medicine just kind of like made sense. I'd also heard, I was in this year 9 science class, and I remember understanding the concept of like muscle memory and why practice makes perfect. And like the 10,000th time you do something, neurons and synapses are like, we got this. And then you can like hit the ball really well or strum the guitar or whatever. And I was just like, that's dope. And so I basically, that kind of set me on the path to do med. And then, to speak to the chaos of my life continuing, like I I was in medical school, like in my third year, and I'd kind of started like playing gigs around Sydney because that's where I was at college. And then I like wrote a song, saved up some money from this summer job to record it, and then it got picked up by Triple J.
Yep.
And that was kind of the turning point where it suddenly was like, oh, maybe this will be a career. But instead of dropping out of med, I just absolutely punished myself for the next 3 years. Getting the career off the ground and finishing the degree. I had shingles a bunch of times, and I was I was not in a good place, but I got to the end. So,
I love the idea of like, you learning about the human body and then like the muscle memory thing and being like, this could help me with my arts career. Like the really getting deep into like what the body needs in order to like sustain a career in a creative field. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it was like, and it's kind of a funny moment to like that I really, really remember. That was kind of the moment where I was like, I think medicine is kind of something that could be cool. Cool is not how I would describe it anymore, but it's a job.
So you were. I correct me if I'm wrong on the timeline of this, but you'd sort of started working on your second album, and by that point you're full time with music, and then the pandemic hits, and so you go back and you're doing medicine full time during the pandemic, and so now you've got this new album that's about to come out, and I feel like every couple of weeks now there'll be a thing in the news where it's like, the measles is coming back. There's some new. Is there a part of you going like, not again? I can't go back in there again. I need to get an album out in a clear.
I know, goddamn. Like, I don't think my nerves can withstand another pandemic. But basically, I'd like finished my junior training and I had like worked in the hospital, and then I quit my job in January 2020, and I was like, this is going to be my year. I was like the meme. And then, like I had a whole year of touring lined up to promote my second record. And, then I was suddenly like on a small plane to Mildura every 3 weeks working in the emergency department. And it wasn't quite the year I had planned.
Right.
And it was like, it was a pretty brutal time. Some of that's like informed the current record, but it was, it was a great time to have medicine as a side hustle.
And to be doing something kind of really, not to say that, art doesn't help people in those times, but to be doing something like objectively, because I think that was the thing for a lot of creative people. Like you really learn the value of these things where it was like first to go, last to come back.
No, I mean, totally. But like I spent a lot of those years, because I sort of had this strange, hybrid, like doing medicine or like working in the hospital, and I was also promoting a record, trying to do like a press circuit. I kind of became this sort of odd spokesperson for the arts, like in the face of, the pandemic. And my friend actually, I remember her saying at the time, she's like, man, you're like the face of the virus. And I was like, that is not something.
Gotta word that a little bit better.
But, I remember lots of discussions about thinking about what is really essential to life. And, like healthcare is obviously essential to life. But, I was out there, mostly on the ABC, arguing that, the arts are essential too, because it's like when you're at your lowest point, or when I was like driving to and from the hospital, what am I doing? I'm listening to music.
Listening to other music,
to podcasts, so it's like that stuff. Maybe it's not about like living or dying, or actually maybe it's not about sort of survival, but it actually is about living, is like having the arts as something to,
So let me ask you this: you're on stage and you're you let's say you're playing the gig of your life. It's going better than any gig you've ever done, and you get a call. All of your childhood heroes are in the audience. 3 songs in, someone collapses in the front row. Are you leaping off the stage and getting into the action, or are you hoping that the venue covers this one?
Well, I'll speak from personal experience.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I was playing some Melbourne shows last year, and we were doing, I was playing just like really small, intimate shows because I haven't sort of played in a while.
Yep.
And so I was playing in this really small room, and it was, I played 2 sets, one after the other, and both were fortunately packed because it was a very small room.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. And just slip that in. But anyway, in both sets, someone passed out.
Okay.
And so in the first one...
it's like Beatlemania.
Literally.
People so excited to see Gordy again after all this time.
I think it was a ventilation issue,
Oh,
honestly.
sure, okay.
But up the back, like someone passed out and then, people are calling out being like, someone's passed out. And so I kind of froze for a second and then I was like, well, everyone in this room probably knows that I'm a medical
These
professional.
are the real ones that are coming to the small gig.
Well, exactly.
That's out there,
so
yeah.
anyway, I kind of went through and luckily they'd kind of recovered. But then
you tear off the clothes you're wearing, you've got the stethoscope and the robe underneath.
A very unsexy Clark Kent. But then the second set, I'm playing a song called Aeroplane Bathroom, which is like a 6-minute ballad.
Yep.
And so I'm like, probably got a minute to go. And I'm looking at this girl like in the corner of my eye who's in the front row and she's sort of like starting to just kind of droop down the wall. And I'm
Not
like,
now, mate.
should I cut the instrumental short?
Give it 60 more seconds. This is the best bit.
Anyway, I'm kind of like keeping an eye on her, trying to sing the song. And then I sort of speeding up and I finish it. And then I go over to her and using 8 or so years of medical training, I get her a can of Coca-Cola and then she's fine.
Yeah, this is great because music venues, they, as you say, they often are like not very well ventilated. There's a lot of like, if it's full and it's busy, people getting crushed and everything. It's almost like, the doctor musician dual lives is like the perfect sort of mix. It's kind of like the comedians that either were or are teachers are kind of so built for it because anyone that's heckling, they've just got that like crowd control mentality where they can just settle a room and put people down. It really, they really go hand in hand.
Yeah, very true.
So I'm interested in you paint this picture of this like, very busy life and kind of pursuing these two different things at the same time that are both very demanding in different ways and going back to your childhood. And you said that people that know you, people think that you would do really well on the show alone, which is when you like all of your stuff is like you're so busy and you're running around doing a million things that people think you would thrive in this show where you are sort of not doing nothing, but it is it's like way more solitary.
It is funny. I mean, I think it's that like I'm a pretty good problem solver.
Sure.
And I think that, really like the study of medicine is the study of problem solving.
Right.
And I think that even like growing up on a farm, you kind of don't have, like you can't just call, I don't know, an array of services that you would have in the city. So I spent my life watching my mum and dad just like, the plumbing's broken. They'll
Picking
figure
stuff
it out,
up. Yeah.
So I think like and even, being a touring artist is like the gear blows up. You're like, okay, what are we going to do? You crash the tour van.
Right.
What are we going to do about this? So
yeah.
I think it's perhaps a reflection on, my ability to solve problems. And also I think less flattering is just my how I like being by myself.
Your loner tendencies. I'm the same. I love my solo time, and boy, you really got to be careful about how much you bring that up around your partner because it does, when you're like, God, I love being alone. I really thrive on it. It's really when I feel the most myself, and my fiance will be like, cool.
Thank you.
Love hearing this. Thank you.
I know. It's like I'll say to people, I'm like, nothing I love more than going to a restaurant by myself, sitting at the bar, having a glass of red wine, like a big bowl of pasta or something. And my partner's like, great. What about when we go out together? I'm like, also good. Yeah. But
touring around and doing gigs and stuff and just being in a sterile hotel room and just no one else around. God, it's awesome. I don't even have that busy of a life and I like it. Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think like just the solo lifestyle, there's something about like I lived alone at the time of the pandemic, but I had gotten together with my partner like 3 or 4 months before. And I love to tell people and tell myself, if I had have been completely alone, I reckon I would have been fine. Now, I'm very glad I didn't have to prove that because I know deep down that the reality would have been me being one of those people that's like, I don't know, just really, I don't know what I would have been doing. I reckon I probably would have ended up buying a ukulele online and doing there'd be some pretty cringe Instagram videos of me.
I hit every stereotype of the pandemic.
Oh, really?
I went through like a sourdough bread phase. Like I never made a good loaf of sourdough bread. I bought a yoga mat. Like and then I got to the ordering wine by the case phase.
Yes.
So I
didn't do the bread, and it's nice to know. I think there's a lot of things. If you didn't get around to them in the pandemic, if I didn't make sourdough then I'm never doing it. But yeah, do you think so? You think you'd go well at the crafting and do you have like those survivalist tendencies that you really need?
That's a pretty generous portrayal of myself, to be honest. But I do think like I kind of thrive on pressure. Like I love high pressure situations. I do like being by myself, and I feel like like I feel like if I'm like, okay, I need to somehow make this thing, I'll try to figure out a way. It's often then like I'm terrible at following instructions.
Sure.
Like so like if we get some furniture from IKEA or whatever, I'm like, let's just put it together on vibe. Like instead of like following one through 16.
Let's let the furniture tell us how it wants to be made. I'm the complete opposite. I'm like, I like the little that's heaven for me, because then I get to the end of that and I feel like I've been on a loan. You know what I mean? I look at it and I go, I created this from scratch, when really I followed something that a 5-year-old could follow. It's Lego. Fair. It's basically Lego
for adults. But the thing, I mean, the fundamental reason why I wouldn't actually be good on a loan is because like if I get hungry, it's over for me and everyone.
Yeah, okay. Because I was going to say you like eating alone, and that's like you know sitting eating a little bug in the middle of the bush by yourself. I think I would. I think to myself I would like it, but I would anything practical that I had to do. Yeah, like I'd be dead within 48 hours.
I know. I also don't like eel.
The scenery.
I don't want to eat an eel. Like in the footage I've seen of Alone, where like they have this like huge momentous thing where they've like finally caught something and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to eat, and then they're like trying to eat this eel.
The ones where they're like they haven't been able to catch anything and they're just like licking bark off the side of a tree because they know that it's got like just the right amount of nutrients in it that they need. That's the stuff that I would like to be on there just long enough to be one of those people who goes a bit loopy and they're filming little sketches with themselves, like doing all the parts. I just would like to tap into that part of my brain. That maybe like I get snuck in a little bit of food. I get a little bit of assistance building the shelter. I don't know if you saw during the week, because my fiance loves Alone. She is a huge fan, and there was a story during the week that she quoted back to me about a man getting kicked off the recent season of Alone Australia for ordering a pizza from Domino's.
Shut up.
And she's like, did you see this? And I was like, babe, that was an April Fool's joke. And she's like, what? And I read it back to her, and it's like, all of it is worded so, those things where it's like the headline, they want to get you on the day, you're like, oh, here we go. And then every detail about it of like, he was quoted as saying, I was just fucking starving, mate. And it's like, this didn't really happen. And she was like so embarrassed. And I was like, no, someone out there at SBS would be rapt to know that they got you, that they got at least one person.
Yeah, and me. I was there for a second.
By osmosis. I think that most reality shows should be I think that like Big Brother, for example, the sort of person that wants to be on Big Brother isn't the kind of person that I'm interested in watching.
Fully.
It should be like a mix between like Willy Wonka and Conscription, where you just get complete randoms in there and you'd have someone in who's like, please vote me out, guys. I'm hating this. Get me out of here. And for most of us, we'd be like, you're the one I'm relating to the most. So you stay in.
It's more like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. Yeah. So what, like, you don't think you'd go well in Alone because you would get hungry? What is the show you'd want to be on?
I mean, like, I'd rather do a myriad of things than go on Big Brother. Like, be locked in a house with a bunch of people that I sort of don't really know, and just all you do all day is socialise. That sounds like absolute hell to me.
I think in the moment I wouldn't mind it so much. My fear would be getting out of there and then seeing the like reaction to you from the public, which I know sounds stupid when I already do stuff that is very public facing, but you being edited in a specific way and your conversations, but like just seeing the point where you just give in and you're like, I'm just hanging out, and then you come out and you're watching it back and you're seeing people online being like, this guy's a fucking loser. I'd hate that so much.
That would be tough. I think like ultimately it'd be Survivor for me. Like and that's like Alone for the common people. Alone for people with no real skills.
It's Alone for people who are probably a bit more like left wing, because like, anytime most of the time when they show those people in their house, you're sort of seeing their home life and you're like, you voted Trump. There's no way.
There's heaps of guns in your house.
Lots of guns. They're sort of like there's always a bit where they're like, yeah, I live out here because, the rules of society are just a bit, and you're like,
and fluoride
okay,
and the
say no
5G
more.
towers.
Yeah.
For sure.
You're just imagining a producer just be like, can you sort of, all the stuff you were saying before, can you just dance around it a little bit more? Like,
could you talk about JFK?
Can you leave the slurs out? Because they're really hard to cut around. Like, we can beep them, but people still know what you're saying. You're not really fooling anyone. So, another frantic pace of life thing that you mentioned, I was fascinated by this. So you have a big family and you had a Christmas lunch where your mum went to church leaving you to cook 70 turkeys for Christmas. No, sorry.
Turkeys for 70
people, right?
That would be
one
incredible,
turkey per person.
What was the question in the survey? Like a time where
you had to bluff your way, you had to fake
Yeah.
your way through something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing that came to mind because, I grew up, when we have Christmas lunch, like for one side of my family, it's like 70 people.
Wow.
And so we had it at our house, like it kind of rotates through different families. And we had it at our house a couple of years ago. And my mum was running out because she plays the organ at the local Catholic church.
Awesome.
Incredible. And so she, and she's like, she was
I'm sorry, no offense. That's bad planning on her part.
It
Thinking
was
that
so
she can hit
chaotic
the
of her.
organ and prepare enough turkey for 70 people. That's you should know by that point in your life that that's just not feasible.
I know.
I'm really getting
she
the sense
takes
of
on
this chaotic busyness being a real family
it's
gene.
actually inherited. I'm realizing it in this moment as well. But she's running out the door Christmas morning, and it's we've done presents, so it's sort of maybe 9 a.m., 9:30, and we got people coming over from midday, and she's as she's pulling the door shut, my sister and I standing in the kitchen, she's like, if you guys could just figure out the turkeys, bye.
Figure out the turkeys.
And my sister and I what do you mean figure out the turkeys? And we just see
so the turkeys the turkeys are there. The turkeys are purchased.
Yeah, the turkeys are
Okay,
purchased. They're
right.
in the fridge.
Okay.
And we're they don't fit in the oven. So what what are we doing?
So how
with
many
them?
turkeys?
So they were. I think it was only 2 or maybe 3,
Okay.
very large turkeys.
Okay.
And so we're on YouTube, and have the computer in the kitchen, bringing up YouTube things, and then we're sort of we're I guess we do it in the barbecue, and then we're looking up basting and all this kind of stuff, and we kind of get it going, which we felt was a total triumph because we were the lunch is hinging on this.
I for the first time 3 or 4 years ago, I hosted Christmas lunch at our house, and it's just so much pressure. Even though it's your family, and there'd be in my case, I'm very lucky. They'd be understanding if something went wrong.
Yeah,
but you do know that there'd be a sly comment maybe 2 years down the line, and just I would cane myself so much, and it was just so much pressure. I was so stressed about it. I don't think I'd even have the wherewithal to look up the YouTube tutorial, honestly. That's when I'm stuck. It's so dumb that's just not even something that occurs to me. I'm I don't know what to do. If I can't find it in text on the internet, I'm out. I don't want to watch a video of someone doing it. I just want broad bullet points of how help me as quickly as possible.
I mean, I always felt doing anything for our extended family, it's a military operation,
right.
And it's if you're given the job of the potato salad, you're 8 timesing that recipe, what I mean? And you're peeling pot upon pot full of potatoes. And this, it was it felt high pressure, but my sister and I were sort of equally terrified, but also just totally loving the fact that we were just it's like a MasterChef challenge.
There is something very exciting about And so you're very eagerly kind of watching as everyone's noticing the turkey. You really want them to give it up. You're annoyed in that moment, surely, if no one says anything about the quality of the turkey.
Well, the thing was, people started to kind of arrive, or and some people who'd gone to church or whatever on Christmas morning, they're kind of coming in dribs and drabs into the house. Everyone's wanting to make comments on how the turkeys are being cooked, or have you done this? How long have they been on for? And we're
where were you? Where were you 2 hours ago?
Exactly. So I was my brother was you want me? I'm don't even think about it. Don't even touch that turkey.
It's too late. It's too little.
We've
too
been in
late.
the trenches with these. Yeah.
So yeah, good response to the turkey.
Great
at
response.
The end of
Yeah. Look, it was moist. It was delicious, and would never cook it again. But people.
This is actually a good reality show. You're in a house, and every day is Christmas morning, and so every day you get up, and there's some new calamity has ensued. Someone's running late. Something needs to be cooked. Something needs to be going picked up. You don't have a gift yet, or something, and it's just like, how long can you last in the house? There's no voting out. It's just until you go mad and you end up leaving.
Exactly. Have you seen the show A Moody Christmas? Because that's kind of what it is.
Okay, that's what that is. All right, yeah. I'm just kind of. It's more like Black Mirror than.
True. That's dark, but I like it.
Than reality TV, but yeah. So one thing that you mentioned that you would like to learn more about. Or no, if you could know everything about a topic. You said the NBA. Is that based on, because you split your time between Melbourne and Los Angeles. Is that a wanting to fit in LA kind of thing?
Well, it's because I've become obsessed with the NBA. Okay. And I've become obsessed with LeBron James. Right. And I have become like a Lakers fan, which is like the most cliche thing ever. And I fully accept that. And it's quite out of character for me, but I'm just like fully invested. Like I got the merch. I'm like,
I guess if you've moved somewhere too, that is a good way of like really just going, if you've made the decision to live there, it's like, why not go full throttle and go for like the home team? Like you really want to be like the stakes to be high.
Exactly. And like, I'm not picking the LA Clippers. Like they're like such bad vibes team. So anyway, I'm like
refusing to watch any movies that aren't filmed in Hollywood.
Exactly.
No, nothing that was filmed for a tax break. They have to be filmed in the backyard of where the industry is.
Yeah. But now I'm like, watching, like keeping up with the NBA is a full-time job.
Right.
Like they play like 3 games a week. And the games, though they're like 12-minute quarters, they go for like 2 hours. So I'm
once you're back here, then you've got the brutal time zone of it all.
Exactly. But also like the reason I'd like to know a lot about it is because I'm like listening to podcasts about it. I'm like watching the games and they're like, talking about, man, like that pick and roll, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I have no idea. But I really want to understand, because basketball wasn't kind of my main sport growing up. So like I have none of that foundational knowledge of what
it was.
What
like 8th out of the 25 that you did after school every day.
Yeah, literally it was.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about it. It seems I like it when I watch it. It is it's like, I guess it's kind of parallel to soccer in maybe the sport that is like really the easiest to follow a game not knowing the specifics of it.
Yeah, and it's very like, dopamine hits all the time because people are like scoring 3-pointers. It's not like you wait. I mean, I loved playing soccer, but I just find watching, I'm like, we're playing for 90 minutes and no one scored.
That's the brutal thing about it. And obviously if you love it, that's the thing that you love about it. But you don't, what was that clip the other day of that Australian guy who just like sunk that insane point in the basketball.
Josh Giddey. It was versus the LA Lakers.
Right.
And he was playing for the Chicago.
Offense.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I actually couldn't bring myself to watch the game because I was like, it happened at it was like a buzzer beater at the very end. The Lakers had like led for most of the game, and then he just like sinks this insane 3-point. Well, like from like the logo in the middle of the court.
And then isn't it like all the commentators are going like, Crocodile Dundee. They're just like wheeling out just every Australianism that they know. It's like, okay, this is brutal.
It's the cringiest thing of all time. But the other thing I love about it is there's like such drama, and there's such like the style, like they're all rocking up and they're like walking into the arena and they're like wearing the most absurd outfits for like, I don't know, a 2-minute walk into the arena.
Yeah, it does rock. So this is very funny to me because you put down, I ask everyone like, what's the thing that you know nothing about? And it really speaks to the I guess the personality type that I'm drawn to talking to on this show, that I think 99% of people have answered geography. No one who's ever been on this show knows anything about geography.
Interesting.
But you've now to the point where it's become a bit of a boring response, and I probably should change the question, but then you've somehow gone even further beyond that and said space.
And when I wrote space yesterday, I think I put in parentheses outer space.
Outer space, yeah. Like, not personal space.
Exactly.
We'll get in here. You're sitting like right next to me. I'm like, can you just back it up a little bit? It's good for the frame, but
I'm kind of ashamed to say like I also don't care about space. Like I just, and I feel like that probably makes me a less intelligent person. But like when people are like talking about some asteroid or whatever, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care about that.
That's a good.
let's say Elon comes to you and he goes, we want you to play on the first we want you to play the first concert out there in space. I mean, I think I agree. I'm like, it's hard to get your head around because it seems so, it's kind of like thinking about death in a way. It's like, you know, it's there, and what happens in the afterlife is sort of there, but it's so out of reach at this, you know, it's so impossible to even really think or speculate about, because like, I'm sure it is pretty awesome to see the Earth from up there, but
sure,
we'll never do it.
I'll go on Google Earth. You know what I mean? I just think like I think my opposition to it perhaps comes from the
opposition.
I've really gone hard.
The question was, what do you know nothing about? And now it's turned into, I'm really anti it. I oppose space.
I'm anti-space. No,
this is the above being a flat earther is like, I actually don't believe anything else out there exists.
I don't know anything about space because I don't want to know anything about space because we got a lot of problems down here.
That's
you know
a good
what I mean?
point.
Like, why are we like? And I guess maybe that's why we need to look into space, because we're going to have to move. But I do think the amount of money we spend on it, when like, you know, we got a few things to sort out down here.
So, can you get into any sort of like sci-fi or any fictional stuff that gets into the idea of space exploration and life on other planets, or are you just completely out?
No,
Widget the World Watcher, don't want to know about him.
It's funny you bring that up because two of my favorite films are Interstellar and Arrival, which are like very space heavy. But I think like I like the emotion of it. I like the abstract concept of like other worlds and other realities and stuff. But again, I guess to come back to the original question, I know nothing about it.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I like it as a template for fiction more so than I'm super interested in like when you get into the like number of billions of light years away that something is. I'm like, that means nothing.
I have no relative terms for that.
It's such a number that you can't even grasp. So like, why even spend time thinking about it? But so the new album, Like Plasticine, the songs that are out so far are great.
Thank you.
I've been listening to Peripheral Lover a lot. And in fact, I was listening to your music to try and kind of really, really immerse myself leading up to this. And I've had a broken right AirPod for at least a year. And your music is so like considered and like textural, and that just having this rattling AirPod, listening to your music was the thing that made me go, this is an absurd way to live. It's time to go and get this replaced.
You're definitely missing a few key parts that I've panned hard to the right.
I can't be sitting in here being like, so weird decision to just have this like rattling sound all through the album. I don't know. It seems it seems like a bit of a misfire to me. Not that I know anything. So thank you for that. I mean, this show is about me trying to make my life better, and
you're welcome.
Immediately now I'm listening to everything in crystal clear spatial audio the way it was intended.
Perfect.
But yeah, you've mentioned that you when you started writing that song, Peripheral Lover, that you were writing it not necessarily for yourself, like thinking that you would give it to someone else. And when you're in that zone, when you're writing stuff thinking that it might be for other people, do you find it like a freer way to write? Because I'm always interested in that with some artists, where like I'm a big fan of the band Hot Chip, and they have an album where they wrote a bunch of songs for Katy Perry that she rejected. And they talk about how the songs are like a bit more, not racy, but they're definitely more open, and they're more sort of suggestive than they generally tend to be in their writing. And they would not have tapped into that vein if they had have been thinking like this will be a Hot Chip song.
It's always Katy Perry, because like when I was writing Peripheral Love with a couple of friends, and we were like, let's like write a song for Katy Perry.
Okay. Yeah, right.
And so
she's the John West of music.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like yes and no. I sort of think like the benefit of sort of writing a song through your artist lens is the inherent limitations that come with that, because you're making a song to your tastes as an artist where you are at that time. And so I guess those limitations go away in one sense when you're writing a song in an imaginary, like world for someone else.
Yeah.
Because those sorts of set of rules go out the window. But then in a way you're kind of, if you're like, this is the kind of song I'm going to make, then those limitations are there in a different way. But I think like the process of coming to terms. Like Peripheral Lover as a song like frightened me for a while. You know, like I was just sort of like, I can't hear myself in it.
Do you mean like the style of it, or like musically or lyrically?
I think musically I think a little bit of both, but musically mostly. And then I was tinkering with it in Melbourne, and I changed 2 chords in the chorus, and it just like completely transformed the song, which sounds crazy, but like suddenly I could like hear myself in it, and it felt, you know, I'm so like governed by emotions and everything, particularly in my work. And I suddenly sort of, the emotion was like hitting me in that kind of diaphragmatic spot, which is the feeling I'm searching for when I'm trying to make something that excites me.
So that's so interesting that it's such a small change, because something I've been thinking about a lot, having just done a show at the Comedy Festival where you're like caning yourself over one bit that you feel like you can't quite get right. And at the end of the day, the answer more often than not ends up being the simplest change. It's like the smallest thing, but unfortunately you do have to go like the long way around. You can't, you know what I mean? Like
Totally.
You can't get there in minute 1. It has to be 2 weeks of trying it all the other complicated ways where then you're just like, oh, what if I just change this one word? Or what if I just change the order of these 2 things? And then the whole thing is so much better.
I know, it's problem solving, right?
You know,
like,
but it is such a relief to just go like, you know what? I don't even care that it ended up being so simple and that all that other hard work didn't mean anything in the end.
The drain.
As long as I've fixed it, that's all that matters. And so you were specifically writing it for Katy Perry, because I was going to ask, like, if you hadn't have recorded it, who would have been your dream person to have the song?
She didn't ask for it, that's for sure. So
this is on spec.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the time, like that, you know, that sort of earlier Katy Perry era, like, you know, that was kind of like what we had in our heads when we were sort of trying to write it. So, you know, I think like I guess any sort of like bigger level pop star.
I like that you're timelining the song. It's like, we weren't listening to the recent one that you got all that blowback for and thinking, let's write a song like this.
Exactly. But you know, at the end of the day, I was like, fuck it. You know, like it's my song, and I'm going to put it out. So,
it's great. And so the album is called Like Plasticine, and you've talked about this idea of the theme of the record being this idea of the second act. Talk a little bit about that, because I really related to that a lot as I was reading, as I'm sure a lot of people can. Yeah,
so I guess like you know, Like Plasticine, the title of the record kind of comes from like my work in the hospital, and it's a bit of a like macabre sort of origin, but stay with me for a second. So like when you're a medical student, you learn to certify death. That's part of what you do in your training. And when I was doing that and, you know, seeing kind of patient after patient, like I was struck by this kind of change in people's appearance, like, and it sort of got me thinking about like Play-Doh and plasticine, and how you kind of, you know, if you use that substance and then you kind of leave it out, it sort of gets this waxy layer on it. And it made me kind of think for years about like plasticine and how we are like plasticine as people, and we, you know, it's an unbreakable substance, but you can kind of put it into all these different molds, and you can squash it down and stretch it out, and you know, it made me think like, what are the kind of essential moments in your life that make you transform? I feel like most people can kind of look back, however old you are, and be like, you know, maybe there's three moments in my life that really kind of changed me or made me who I am.
Right, of course, yeah. And then you always have, like, I have things like that where I think about the sliding doors moment of like, what if that hadn't have happened? I'd be like a completely different person.
Exactly. So like when I think about that, you know, in the context of these songs and my life, like, you know, those things can be positive or negative forces, you know, so it can be grief, it can be falling in love, it can be, you know, like coming to terms with your identity, whether it be like sexual identity or whatever else. And then one of those kind of elements is this idea of like the acts of life. Right. And, you know, that feels, I mean, all of it feels pretty out of your control, but that one, you know, it feels less sort of like a severe moment in time, more like, you know, you're suddenly in this different place. And I'm definitely at an age where I'm looking around and, you know, friends of mine are off on a new journey, whether that be having kids, whether that be moving to a different country, whether that be, you know, buying a house somewhere. And like it's a real kind of rub where, you went from all your lives looking kind of similar and then suddenly you can all be in quite different places.
Yeah, I think there's something so interesting in that because like I'm a little bit older than you, but I've definitely been struck recently by this feeling of like, so like I moved schools in year 11 and I've sort of always had a life where I've really been across the idea that you go through these acts and people come in and out of your life. And then I had this period like in the last couple of years where like a lot of stuff has changed and I was really annoyed at myself for how much it rattled me. Because even though I've always been used to that idea, I really did think by this point in life, okay, you've gotten that. That's all, you're up until your early 30s, that's all the malleable time. And then you're into this period where you've really whittled people down. The people that you're still close to, that you've been close to a long time, you've gone through it all together, you're sort of locked in. And so to kind of have all these things happening, it really hit me for six in a way where I was like kind of annoyed at myself for being affected by it. You know what I mean? Like it is such an interesting thing. And I think like you kind of feel like you go through it and then you kind of feel like you're maybe done with it. But the lesson is like, yeah, you're never done with it.
Well, and and that's kind of the point of, this, well, what I've written is sort of like there is no end point. You know, like that there is no kind of being like, I just need to get across this next hill and then it's going to be like a plateau forever. It's like, but it's just kind of learning to live with it, like learning to live with the constant thrum of change and most of it kind of being out of your control and kind of just when you feel like, okay, my life now it's sorted, then some other like puzzle piece goes and you think, wow, now I have to, recalibrate and readjust. But I think that, you can look at that in a really negative sense, or you can look at it in a way that you think, God damn, look how resilient I am.
Yeah, that's what I think that's really all you can do. And also to think of it as an opportunity more so than a thing that you have to mourn of like, oh, I'm never getting that back, or that's all changed or whatever. Like there's an opportunity there for growth and for something else to fill that space. I loved reading in the like the supporting text for that accompanies the album, just you getting deep into these thoughts about these kind of points of life, because I think it's so relatable. And I especially love that the genesis for that theme on the album was you looking at a dead person and thinking, wow, that looks like Wallace and Gromit.
Basically, Pingu.
Not to oversimplify it or anything, but yeah. So something that you've learned to do in your adult life, of course, the self-producing music.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I'm sure a lot of people listening would really. In fact, someone I mentioned that on the socials that we were doing this today, and there's someone who wrote in who is an opera singer, and so they do a lot of vocal training, and what they were really interested in was that you don't really hear as much about what kind of vocal training and coaching methods pop singers use and like maintaining voice, and they were interested to kind of know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I had like formal vocal training, went from age 12 to 18 when I was at school, and then I kind of dropped off, and I was just sort of still playing shows and singing just with the voice that I have inside me. And then I got to my second record, and I was like, because it was the pandemic and we couldn't kind of play any shows, I launched the record by playing this show in the Opera House to nobody.
Yeah, I saw a bunch of them.
Yeah, and it was like, but it was like immediately cast on the internet and you can still see it on YouTube. So I was terrified of like, because when you play a live show, there are bum notes and moments where you kind of like, it's live.
At least no one's going to collapse in the audience. You're going to have to take care of them.
But I like, the idea of that live show sort of being immortalized forever was enough motivation for me to go back and have more vocal coaching.
Sure.
So I found, I knew this woman who is plays keys and does backing vocals for a number of great artists and is a great artist herself. And I asked her for some vocal lessons. And it was really, I think there's, as opposed to, you know, I mean, I'm not an opera singer, but I guess in the sort of genre that I'm in, it's about, you know, it's less about sort of maybe trying to attain this like these perfect notes and more about sort of trying to like harness your idiosyncrasies within your own tone of voice, but also then sing in a way that's, you know, protecting your vocal cords and using your diaphragm. And but yeah, I had really intensive you know, like lessons up until and beyond that performance.
I always think it's interesting when there's a band that you're into that are maybe, let's say 4 or 5 albums in, and you're kind of following them along, and then you'll go back to their first album where they've just sort of, you know, they're just figuring it out. They've just done it as like a bit of a like, hey, let's see what happens here. And you can just see the progression even from like album 1 to album 2, like in the middle going, I got to get some vocal like now that this is taken off, I got to start to like figure out how to actually use this thing instead of just getting up there and
totally
going for it.
And like you can, you know, I listened back to my first EP like to now. And I mean, a big part of it is also just aging, you know, like your voice changes, especially your singing voice changes so much, and it actually like gets better as you get older, which is one of the few things that gets better as you get older. But you know, I think they say like, especially for, you know, classical opera singers, like you're peaking in sort of your 40s and 50s.
Oh, interesting.
You know, which is really cool. So
it's nice to know that there is one thing out there that's like, you know, you delude yourself. Yeah, I could still have this career in this if I really wanted, but music, it's still true.
True. So yeah, like that, getting the kind of technical knowledge under, you know, to back my singing has been really critical. And yeah, it's been interesting. It's a lot of visualization techniques. Like that's a real way that, you know, or like little things like when you're going for kind of a high note, because so much of it is sort of psychological, that, you know, one of the things my vocal coach told me is you just bend your knees a little bit as you're going for the for the high note, and it's about kind of grounding yourself down to the floor. And you know, it's a lot about visualization.
This
which
is
I
how
find
my
interesting.
stupid brain works, is that I'm just imagining you're visualizing it like it's Guitar Hero, and you're just seeing
whatever
like
works.
crazy solo coming up, drifting down towards you, and being
stealing
here
myself.
It comes.
I mean, not dissimilar. Yeah.
But so because this is the thing, I like. I'm interested in music. I sang in my comedy festival show that I just did for the first time in my life. Never sung publicly apart from karaoke. And it was very overwhelming and very scary. I think depending on the night, I think I either just got away with it or it was, a comedy show. So if it's bad, it's funny. But yeah, I've often thought about dabbling in making some little bits and pieces of music. And it is, I think it's that thing at the moment where it's kind of, obviously it's never been easier in the sense of access to programs and being able to get things out there. But I do think that like the wealth of ways that you can do it, to me at least, has felt a bit overwhelming. There's almost like it's almost too easy where you're like, well, I don't even know where to begin. Like, what do you start with? Like for anyone who's wanting to just kind of like do their own stuff in a little like bedroom producing kind of way, like what would your advice be for starting that out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like you got to get some piece of equipment to record. So like, you know, that might be a 4-track cassette recorder, like, or it might be GarageBand, you know, like those things are probably the most economically entry level things that you can get. You know, if you are wanting a more a sort of higher level, they call them like DAW, D-A-W. You know, there's Pro Tools or there's Logic or there's Ableton. I, having kind of used all of those, I would say Logic is the easiest entry point.
Okay.
And you know, you get a little interface, like, which I remember when I first started, I had like $150 Steinberg, like little interface, which you just plug into a computer. And I had like a $50 microphone, and you know, and I had a guitar and were
you just doing like turkey style, just YouTube tutorials to try and piece
literally
together the
pieces? As I was answering your survey, I was like, I can't write the YouTube thing again because I wrote it for the turkeys, but like that is how me learning how to baste and cook turkeys and learning how to do music production, I approached it in the same way.
Wow, that is, you're talking about the big moments in your life, and that is the sliding doors moment. If your mum doesn't get you to cook turkey for 70 people,
you'll never be a music producer.
You don't end up producing your own music.
Shout out to Gordy for joining me and for being such a great sport. I did not know what to expect from that conversation, to be completely honest, but I had a great time. And if you're not familiar with her music, the record Like Plasticine is out on August the 8th. There's a few singles out already. You can pre-save it. You can pre-order it from her website, gordimusic.com. I've been giving those advanced singles a huge run around the house. So I highly recommend that you check that out. And as I mentioned up the top of the show, patreon.com/howtodoeverything. If you want to support the show, if you would like to get some extra content with guests that have been on the show, some people who haven't been on the show yet, there's a little fake radio show that I do where I play songs for an hour once a month. Head over to patreon.com/howtodoeverything. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next time for more How to Do Everything.